Okay. Yeah, man. Yeah. I've been I've been kind of just like, just dropped this record and sort of basking in that vibe, figuring out the next steps.
Awesome. I love the new record, and I was so pleasantly surprised to get that email announcement, the new newsletter, like New Extra Life. And I remember last time we spoke, you're hinting at the possibility of new material. I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I had been trying to tell people without telling them, I was sort of kind of saying, if you liked the old Extra Life, then you'll like the next thing I'm doing. I thought it would be I thought a surprise drop would be somehow for this would be an appropriate way to go.
Yeah, I like a surprise drop. It's nice against, I mean, in contrast to, like I guess a typical PR campaign where it's 4 months of like teasing something with very little substance, and you're like, all right, okay, here's another 10 seconds. Ooh.
Yeah, I kind of, it's cool to have I don't have any it's not like I reject, industry, I want press.
Mhm.
There's going to be some press for this, but yeah, the whole cycle, like that thing of trying to secure like a premiere for your single and that kind of stuff. It's like, I'm not sure if it does. Who knows? Maybe you would be making an even bigger splash if I had done it the traditional way. But it's selling really well already, and just it's getting out there. I don't know. I think just social media, man, just even just in my YouTube too, it's like people, I think it's possible that more people watch a video I make on YouTube than might click a link to 5 questions with Charlie Looker in whatever big publication. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And plus, you're not kind of locked into someone else's timetable.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because I mean, no one asked for this, so it's just completely out of the blue. It's self-released. Now there's going to be kind of a timeline because we're going to be touring, which we haven't booked any things yet. So we got, like, right now we're figuring out, you know, when is Europe, when is the States. It'd be like December or January probably. But so now we got to move things along. But yeah, it was cool having no time, no time frame for release, no time frame for finishing the recording.
How long has this new album been in the works for?
Well, I mean, it was like 2 years ago, like I guess right before COVID happened, that I was writing a couple things or I started writing something that was going to be the new Psalm Zero record, or it was going to be a Psalm Zero song or piece. And but it just started to feel like something else. And I was like, what does this remind me of? Like, oh yeah, reminds me of me 10 years ago. But then it was like, I was just like, all right, so I guess Psalm Zero is going to change. Okay, it's going to kind of change the aesthetic as I started writing this thing. And then it's like I started writing one of the quieter songs. I started with, Diagonal Power. I came at the beginning and I was like, and then I started writing How to Die. And I was like, is this even a Psalm Zero ballad? And then, so then it's like, I'm starting to think, the idea of an Extra Life reunion comes in my head. And I'm like, no way. Absolutely not. And then it just kind of starts to grow, it sort of ferments, over the course of this lockdown. And then I start, then by the fall, and I've got the stuff done, and then doing these long distance things, sending demos to the guys.
Originally, Extra Life called it in 2012, and I think the blog post stated that the inner creative momentum driving the band has stalled. So I have to ask, like, what exactly does that mean?
Well, at the time, I guess I was there were aspects of the music that there were aspects of just like the identity of what Extra Life had already become, or what these sort of trademark aspects of it that I wanted to get away from. And there was a certain well, some of the humorous elements and the sort of like perverse humor elements, and also just I wanted to yeah, I wanted to shed some of that. And then also I had this thing, or I wanted to like compartmentalize my creative work. So I was like, I didn't want to have a band where I was doing the complex, thorny sort of composer stuff. I was kind of like, doing this crazy complex music, I want to do this just in a sort of classical chamber music context, write for ensembles, projects like that, which come my way periodically. And then I was like, for a band, I'm gonna funnel my aggro rock and metal, things into a band, which was Psalm Zero, which wasn't intended to actually be super serious. I was going more serious composer mode, but actually Psalm Zero started to get more attention and stuff than my classical commissions and stuff. So it was kind of, that sort of took off and things got kind of zigzaggy. And then I just kind of came around. I'm like, man, Extra Life kind of was the best of both worlds. Um, but but now it's back, and I kind of have shed some of the elements I wanted to get away from. I got away from, and then the elements I wanted to resurrect, I've resurrected.
So yeah, so that leads me to my next question. Like, what was the thought process on choosing to do a follow-up to Secular Works as opposed to, let's say, Made Flesh? So there was something in the Secular Works one that you wanted to re-examine, basically?
Yeah. Well, for me, Made Flesh and Secular Works are pretty similar. I mean, there's some differences, but just the fact that I'm playing guitar on them, on Dream Seeds, I don't play guitar. Actually, that's Kaylee, the violinist, switched over to guitar, and I'm playing synth on that. And the guitar tone's all different and everything. But Made Flesh and Secular Works are both me on the baritone guitar, playing with this particular tone and playing certain types of, complicated stuff. So it could have been Made Flesh too, but I think actually part of the reason I wanted to do Secular Works Volume 2 is that it was kind of facing my fear, which my fear is that Secular Works is the best thing I've ever done, and that my best work is behind me. That to me is like, that's like a really toxic idea, So I kind of wanted to, especially since people have always kind of said, people don't want to say this, but they're like, dude, like Secular Works, that was, it's kind of the one, right, man? I mean, like, and so I it's like the idea that I'm never going to top that is like actually really depressing to me. So I kind of wanted to just face that and be like, nah, man, I'm going to do Volume 2 and it's going to be better. Like, it's going to be the same kind of thing, but better. Now, I don't know if it's actually being that similar. I don't know if it ended up better. I don't even know if Secular Works is the best thing I've ever done. You know what I mean? These things are somewhat subjective, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, there are a lot of people tell me they like Made Flesh the best, but regardless, like, just that idea of just trying to top yourself, like just going back, it's just something I never thought I would ever do. Like, if 4 years ago, if you told me you're going to reunite Extra Life and do Secular Works Volume 2, that would sound like a joke to me. Like, I would be almost offended. I was like, why do you think I would do that? So it's like, it just seemed very perfect COVID move, to just be like, all right, we're in an alternate reality. This is my alternate reality move.
Yeah, as a creative person, that must be terrifying, that feeling that, oh shit, like, did I already peak? Like, should I call it quits? What do I do now?
It's kind of possible. I mean, but of course, you never know. The future is unwritten. or appears to be unwritten in our linear experience of time. Like, but yeah, you get to a certain age, man. It's like here's the thing, it's like rock cats. Okay, pigeonholing genres, okay, maybe that's not cool or whatever, but generally rock and pop type people don't make their best stuff like in their 40s or 50s. I mean, generally it's like your 20s, but I'm not totally a rock guy. This is also composer stuff. So however you want to, I don't know, but it's yeah, when you're like an ambitious person and you're going to be doing this forever, there has to be that I just kind of realized that there has to be a humorous acceptance of the possibility that my best work's behind me. It's just to face that it's possible and just to proceed anyway, is somehow that's like spiritually, something like spiritually healthy about that for me, but I'm not trying to put it out there that secular works is better than this one. I mean, I would rather listen to this one than the first one. I mean, it's like this might be the best thing I've ever done. 3 albums in the future might be the best thing I've ever done. I'm not saying Secular Works 1 is the best, but it's I'm saying if it turns out to be, that's okay.
Yeah, so it's like freeing yourself from creative mortality in a sense, or at least like facing the fear and sitting with it as opposed to just letting it fester.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, the idea of progress or like improvement, I don't know. It's like everyone wants to think that they're just getting better and better with age. But it's like we all know that in many ways that's not true. Maybe in other ways it is true. But yeah, like I mean, yeah, I've always been on this vibe of the second I'm done with a record, like the second I'm done with it, I'm like, I don't even want to listen to this. I dislike everything up to like last week, when I put out a record, I'm immediately just like, you don't even listen to the record that came out. It's the next one is the real one, like that's always been my vibe. When I started doing Psalm Zero, dude, I hadn't even listened to Made Flesh. Like last year, I listened to Made Flesh for the first time in probably like 7 years. Like I didn't even remember how long sections of the pieces even go, like I just don't remember like writing the shit, so I used to just never look back, like what's the Greek myth where or the biblical, he looks back and his wife turns into a pillar of salt, or he turns into a pillar of salt?
Yeah, I think in the Bible someone was leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, maybe.
Is that it? Yeah. Lot, isn't it Lot?
Yes,
Lot.
that is correct.
I
Yeah.
think Lot. Yeah, Lot. I was getting it mixed up with like Orpheus. No, but there's a thing with looking back in Orpheus too,
I don't think I've read Orpheus.
where it's like the Greek myth, like he goes to the underworld. Eurydice looks, yeah, he loses his woman by looking back. In any case, I used to be on that fleeing the Gomorrah of my whatever the last record is, but I'll tell you, this new one, I'm not immediately done with listening to it the second it's done. I'm super hyped on this. I'm going to be hyped on this for a while. I'm definitely in it right now,
Nice. Yeah, I personally like Volume 2 more than Volume 1.
There you go. Glad to hear it, man.
And like Volume 1 ends with Bled White, and I told you before, like I love that song so much. So that like for me is like, I guess, like a testament to how good the new record is.
Yeah, that you like the new one even better. Yeah, man. No, I appreciate that. There's also there is stuff though that like you can't repeat. I mean, there's stuff that it's not even a question of better or worse, but things that I didn't recapture, and that's okay, but just I don't know. I can't give an example. I mean, See You at the Show is just such a like particular thing that I never like did again. This drone with this like rapid fire chanting and like a million lyrics. I didn't try to redo that. That I just left in the past. I love that piece, but it's just like that's just a one-off.
Oh, I have a typical music journalist type question for you.
Sure.
How would you rank the Extra Life releases?
Well, let's just assume that the new one is at the top, even though I
Yeah.
can't. I mean, even though I don't have enough distance on it to really say. Man, that's hard to say because I liked. I'd say I would put Made Flesh at the bottom. Actually, I would say probably. I guess beneath the new one, I would say maybe Secular Works Volume 1 and then Ripped Heart. That's hard though, man, because Ripped Heart is like kind of more emotional to me ultimately. But yeah, let's say Volume 1, then Ripped Heart, then Dream Seeds, and then Made Flesh. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, like if I had to maybe pick one, like Ripped Flesh or Dream Seeds might be towards the top.
Ripped Heart or News and Made Flesh.
Ripped Heart. I'm getting tongue tied here.
Yeah. Ripped Heart being the EP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that EP. It's fantastic, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of a different, sort of a different direction. It's a little more like indie rock or something. I mean, as much as any of this is. But yeah, there's different stuff though, man. I mean, the new one, there's different vibes, dude. It's like it's less quote unquote personal. I don't know. People always use the word personal, and just like lyrically, it's not like personal narratives so much.
Yeah, so less biographical, maybe.
Yeah, less autobiographical and less of the world. There's no sex. There's zero sex on the new record. It's just which was a part of all that old shit.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but yeah, I'll be listening for that for sure.
I didn't notice it. It wasn't deliberate, but afterwards I was like, damn, man, this is like, yeah, like it's no longer. I mean, I still am able to carry out the act with reasonable freak, but yeah, it just doesn't occupy this. It's like not a point. It's not like a fascinating, rich, conflicted, fraught, battleground of psychic, mishigas. I mean, it's just it's like I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if anything, it's reflective of like emotional growth and development or maturity, if I could use that word.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 42. Now this stuff was written when I was like 27, so it's a different life phase, man.
Yeah, and like the 20s, I'll just speak for myself, is full of thoughts of pursuing the genders we like. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Yeah, and it just like it means a lot. It somehow means something about who you are and your place in the world. And there's all this libido and sort of libidinal, investment and everything. But it's interesting because even though the lyrics have no sex vibes going on, I mean, the music in this is, I mean, there's just as much kind of like aggressive, up tempo. It's not like overall like a quiet record, there's like fast songs. So
yeah, the aggression and the tension are for sure there, no question.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of modeled after Secular Works, like Volume 1, like on the level of just like almost like the layout of the, like I was like, there's going to be a fast, loud one up top. The second one's going to be loud, but slower, and then acoustic ones in the middle, and then a weird one, and then a quiet one to end with, like it was kind of not a strict template, but sort of like a loose template,
Yeah, so similar like album sequencing.
Yeah, album sequencing is the word. Yeah. And I kind of was almost modeling it just after the idea. I've been saying this to people, how it's like those like the classic Metallica records,
Oh,
right? Just
yeah, that's right.
yeah, like I mean, just Lightning, Puppets, and Justice. They have that kind of thing. It's either fight fire with fire or battery or blackened. Starting it off.
So tell me about the line of the new record. How did you end up going with who you ended up with, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one original member is Kaylee Monahan Ward on violin. I mean, he actually wasn't on the Secular Works Volume 1, but he like joined right after that record and like and he was on all the other records and he did all the touring with it, so he's like, he's OG, Extra
Yeah.
Life. And then Toby was I mean, Toby was just down to do it, which I was kind of surprised, man, because he's such a leader, his whole like he's known as like he's known as like the leader of Chaodot, the mastermind, but he actually is sometimes down to like do, like sort of sideman supportive work and stuff. He's just like so chill to work with, like the most like just play shit perfectly, the sweetest, chillest dude. I mean, I've known Toby forever. So yeah, I mean, he was just a great, I just asked him. And then Gilles Chevigny, who's he's an interesting addition because I met him in Belgium. He's from Belgium, he's from Liège. And I met him because he was playing in this band called Helium Horsefly. Do you know Helium Horsefly?
I do not.
Oh, dude, you would without any doubt be into Helium Horsefly, man. I mean, if you're into any of this shit, like they're another one of these like dark kind of prog bands. I think they're kind of big over there. I think they deserve to be bigger over here. But I met them because I was doing like a short solo tour in 2019 of just doing versions of the Simple Answers material, like solo live. And I opened for Helium Horsefly in Liège. And yeah, I mean, Gilles was just crushing. So yeah, so we met there, and then he spent a couple years living in Louisiana, of all places, like outside of Baton Rouge. And so he was there, and he hit me up, and he was like, "Yo, if you ever need a live drummer for Psalm Zero, like I'm your dude." And I was like, "Yo, I'm psyched about your offer. I'm very psyched, but hold that thought. I might have another alternate proposal for you." And then this was when I was kind of like the idea of Extra Life Reunion was coming together. So then I I mean, I had, so then I asked him to do it. I mean, I had talked a little bit with Nick Podgorski, the original Extra Life drummer. I mean, I talked with him about it too, and he was just kind of like, I'm into doing a reunion if the music is like way different and we have a whole new vibe and it's just this whole new approach. And I was like, man, the concept is like literally the opposite of that. So I guess maybe like you're not into, I was like, it's literally volume 2 of the first record. So he's like, let's not. I was like, I feel it. So yeah, but then I started working with Gilles, and and yeah, we started sending demos back and forth. And yeah, and then we just, we all went to New York to record it, which none of us live in New York. Toby lives in Connecticut. Gilles was in Louisiana, and then I'm out in LA now. So yeah, but that's how that all came together. Oh, well, Kaylee still is in New York. But
And you guys recorded with Ben Greenberg, right?
Yep.
Yeah, tell me more about that. It's so like because I'm a simpleton, it just the other day I realized, oh wait, one of the dudes who played in Z's is also in uniform. I'm like, oh duh.
I don't know if
learning
that's
that he records
man.
so much, like he also records bands as opposed to his own bands and his own practice. Yeah, so what was that experience like?
Ben's great, man. I mean, he has a very particular I mean, he's versatile, but I mean, he has like a vibe that he brings to stuff, it's like he's not kind of just like, it's not just like, oh, good, well done recording. He like brings like a flavor to it, which turned out to be really cool for Extra Life. Yeah, all the other engineers we worked with have also been great. I mean, there's different, the records have somewhat different sounds, But yeah, Ben did on this stuff that it really serves the compositions, man. I mean, it's like it's kind of edgy, you know, it's like kind of a little more like aggressive sounding, you know. He records to tape or through tape, you know. He's like does a lot of compression, like multiple different layers. He yeah, he just it's very like bright and kind of like just in your face. So yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, Ben was in Z's, man. I mean, I've known Ben since he was 18. He's a few years younger, but yeah, I've known him since he was 18 and I was 23.
And he was your student at one point, right?
I mean, that's how I met him. I mean, he wasn't like a student. He's not like a protege of mine, you know, or anything. I mean, he was like a dude in his own right, but yeah, I met him when he was studying at the New School in New York, and he did like an independent study, just taking a couple lessons of like composition and stuff with me because yeah, he was in a couple of kind of like short-lived kind of like math rock and noisy kind of bands, and yeah, and I was kind of like just starting to do Z's, and he was like hip to that early on. So and then yeah, and then we just started hanging a lot, and then yeah, and then I brought him into Z's. But all of that, I mean, that's all before. But he was an engineer though that whole time. You know, he was like building up his whole kind of just his chops and his business and everything. Um and yes, it was really cool to connect with Ben after this kind of I don't know, just after we've both gone on these journeys, man, you know.
Oh, since like the entire band clearly has chops, did you guys record live?
Yeah, I mean, we overdubbed a lot of violin, but even a bunch of that was live. Um, so yeah, I mean, the basic approach was live. Obviously, we like go back and punch in stuff
Hmm.
and fix stuff and move little things around. I mean, you know, it's not like we went in and just played that take that you heard and like fucking left the studio. I mean, we did plenty of plenty of little surgery and massaging and stuff. But yeah, it's not like yeah, it's not like we just did drums and bass and then did all the guitar over that or anything like that, you know. It's like a lot of live takes.
Yeah, historically, do you have a preference of like recording live versus, tracking everything separately?
I mean, it's cool to do as much together as possible, you know. I'm not really trying to keep live vocal takes. That I gotta do a bunch of takes on that for sure. Some of that, you know, singing wise, man, you know, some stuff that seems simple is not simple, and then some stuff that seems super complicated actually turns out to be weirdly easy, you know. But but yeah, I like to. I mean, I for this in particular, I was like, let's keep mistakes if the vibe is good, you know.
Yeah.
We this is not about like quantum physics level of whatever, um of like exactitude, you know.
Yeah. So Extra Life is rooted early. I don't know if rooted is the right word, but is clearly influenced by concepts of early music, right? So I was wondering, like,
Yeah.
how closely do you stick to things that they would have done with early music composition versus like how far do you stray? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. It's a good question. I mean, it strays pretty far. I mean, I wouldn't even say, I don't even know if stray is the right word, because that sort of makes it sound like I'm like starting from some kind of really traditional practice
Hmm.
of like medieval or Renaissance music. I mean, it, it's not like I'm not like uh well, there are certain aspects of like Renaissance music that I'm like schooled in, like technically, but most of all of this early music that I'm into is sort of by ear, just sort of absorbed, you know, whatever. So it's like the vocal part, like my vocal melodies are pretty medieval-ish. I mean, you could tell that just by hearing, you know. Um, just some of the shapes and the movement and stuff, just like it doesn't follow like what it wouldn't fly in the Middle Ages. It would not.
Okay.
Like, I would be burned as a witch, but it does but I've absorbed a lot of the sort of, it's like the asymmetry of the lines, although there's some of these melodies are totally rock, like square symmetrical rock shit. But I mean, the stuff that's the stuff that's more medievalish, like it has that sort of asymmetrical going up and down and then leaping up and coming down. It's very active lines, active melodies that don't really repeat in the same way that more normal rock melodies do, but then I guess, like, when it comes to the guitar parts and the instrumental stuff, that tends to be less like coming out of anything ancient,
Mhm. Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're not
that's probably
stuck
good.
to the concepts. You wouldn't go like, well, I can't use this chord progression because they wouldn't have done that back in the day or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, not at all, man, not at all. I mean, it's sort of like well, the one place where I'm like actually living pretty close to early music is the very, very end of How to Die, like just the end of the record when it's just the two-part vocal, like counterpoint and stuff. I mean, that stuff is like, that still isn't following like rules or anything from Renaissance music, but it's definitely like there's a lot in there that if you played that end for someone from like 15th century France, they'd be like, okay, this is kind of fucked up, but like it sounds like music. You know what I mean? Like they would like register that as like, okay, this guy's like kind of is like a crackhead, but like he is like thinking about things roughly in the terms that we're thinking about them in like 15th century France. Um, but yeah, the other shit, man. I mean, it's not, coming apart, like the intro to Coming Apart. I mean, that's angular, mathy, whatever you want to call that.
So back in the day, like, why do you think they like that aesthetic of the vocals going up and down and being asymmetrical?
Um, I think that there is a sense, oh man, I mean, I'm like trying to figure out like how much of a stretch I want to go with like what I suppose the answer to be, given that like I don't have a whole bunch of like evidence or like to back this up, like this is
Yeah.
really like free floating, like okay, but just supposing stuff.
Hmm.
I think that I think the question to me is not, it would be reversed, not so much why was vocal music so asymmetrical then. The question for me is like, why did it become more symmetrical and repetitive later? And I think that has to do with maybe the development of the keyboard, whereas like you
Like
start to,
being laid out chromatically.
yeah, having the keyboard laid out in this way where you're using your hands instead of your throat and body and stuff, so that where it's like um when you sing, there are certain things that work on the voice, where it's like if you leap up, going down by step from there is like works for the voice really well, whereas like on the keyboard, it's like there's certain, it's like on the keyboard that like taking little patterns and just like moving the same pattern around with your hand um is sort of fits under the hand and is easy, and the keyboard lays itself, it's sort of the keyboard lends itself visually and conceptually and maybe even physically with the manual, like the fact that you're using your hands. I think the keyboard lends itself to transposing patterns in this symmetrical transposable way, whereas the voice maybe doesn't have that kind of visual like layout in your head. I think that may be part of it. I have that ancient melodic sense of asymmetry, a lot of it's based on balance. The idea that it's beautiful, that having things repeat too much is ugly, and that it's beautiful to have things be asymmetrical yet balanced. I think that was a value um there. And I mean, I've I've heard people talk about like economic parallels, that it's a little out of my what I could really get into, that I could speak on well or in an informed way. But I have heard a couple people that I've talked to talk about how the development of the keyboard and the development, like in Baroque music, and the tonal system and this thing of transposability and exchange, actually is paralleled by like the rise of transnational capitalism and like exchange as a sort of totalizing, universalizing logic. I know it's a little, that this is what that's my answer.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting because it's a testament to how the music of the day is like a function of technology and broader cultural phenomena that you would think that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think would have an effect on something as like low level as vocal melodies.
Yeah. I think, yeah, because there's this, I don't know, there's this sense, it really is, yeah, there's like, it's like technology and just the way everything's working in society, yeah, like boiling down to just how somebody thinks about what's beautiful, right? I get this vibe that it's just in ancient times, there's more of this thing of like, this is what it is. It's not like a thing that you could then put into a different key and then take it and chop it up and then take the same thing and reconfigure it in a different place. It's like there's this vibe of like just things being just what they are. I don't know.
So for like early music, what was the typical venue? Would it be like a chamber style space?
No, the cathedral, man. I mean, it's
Cathedral?
just all religious music. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one
I
thing I've
mean,
noticed. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead.
I was gonna
Well, I
say,
mean,
all right, I am not going this time.
okay. I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, of course, there's secular music that was like, dances and like folk songs and stuff, which is, I mean, that would just, I suppose, be at like a bar or something, or just in the home, I suppose. But the music that we're talking about with the chant and the counterpoint and all this stuff, the complex, all this and that would be all liturgical music for mass.
So one thing I've noticed about the new album is how lovely the reverb is. So I was wondering, was there a point to model the reverb used in the album as to be similar to the reverb that would have been like around when early music was actually happening? Like, was it a point to like use like a church reverb algorithm to make it sound
Yeah.
more early music-y?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, actually, no, and we'll see. Actually, I would. I mean, Ben was the guy like actually doing all the reverb. Like when it comes to just the sound of the recording and all the mixing and all of that, I really did not backseat drive a lot with Ben. And I told him up top, I was like, Ben, like I want, you should like do your thing, and then we'll do like, I'll give feedback and tweaks, but like, I was like, I don't really have a specific idea of what kind of sound we're going for, like in general,
Mhm.
So actually, a lot of those reverbs, I think they sound awesome, but I don't think they sound churchy at all. And honestly, some of that, when he first played me the mixes, I was like, wait. Like I literally thought, I was like, this is like not churchy at all. Like that was like my first thought. I was like, wow, this is quite unchurch like, And so I was kind of taking, I had to like readjust for a second. And then I was like, no, this is sick, because he has I don't know, he has a way of like getting sort of the best of both worlds, like where it's like reverby in a way where it sits in the mix well, but
Mhm.
it's like you can still hear the stuff very clearly, like it's like a very unmuddy kind of reverb thing. So yeah, whatever he ended up doing was sick. And I don't think he did the sort of the cathedral algorithm reverb. I have all those when I do the demos and all that, or anything I record myself. I have the like Notre Dame like plug in with like this little picture of Notre Dame. It's hokey, but it's really real sounding though. Altiverb, the whole Altiverb thing. That's a package of, like they have like a million cathedrals from around the world. You can be, like you could do it in a mosque, you can do it at, but yeah.
Yeah, hearing the reverb also made me wonder about like, because I've read that Toby Driver is a reverb nerd, so I was wondering if he had like a hand in. No, we got to use this like modeled space versus this other modeled space for the reverb.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the least I've ever been involved in mixing, on purpose, because it's just every other time. I mean, yeah, it's always been me and other band members, on the couch. You're looking at the back of the guy's head, he's like moving something around. You're like, no, don't do that, and it's like, I was just like, I don't want to do that this time. I was like, a few notes up top, go get lunch, do other stuff, come back, couple of notes, he does the tweaks. That's that. And then of course 4 weeks later, me being like, dude, we got to change this and that. But I mean, but for the basic thing of just like, so I don't even know what reverbs he used. I have absolutely no fucking idea. And yeah, Toby was like totally uninvolved in the mixing, but I I would play him the mixes before we gave him the final okay, and he was, I mean, he was psyched about all of it.
So when you were writing the new album, did you start out with just like demoing the skeletons of vocals and guitar and then sending them over to see what they would like put on top of it, or were you writing like basic ideas for the bass and the drums?
It was different on different songs. Actually, the bass, I mean, I wrote I think I wrote all of the bass parts. They're not crazy complicated too. I mean, they really just follow the guitar and pretty straight up. They just sort of fortify the guitar. I mean, not that they're easy to play because the guitar is hard to play. So, but it was easy for Toby. And then, yeah, the drums, some of the drum stuff, I actually just programmed all the drums with MIDI, like, and just, like every drum hit is exactly like I wrote the part. And then a lot of other parts, Gilles came up with the parts, and a lot of that I didn't even really, I'd give him like sort of, I'd be like, do something with like mostly just toms here, or another part. I was like, do something that's more like more traditional heavy rock drumming, yeah. But the parts where he came up with this stuff, he did bring some style, he's bringing his style to, well, actually, even the stuff that I wrote, even the stuff where I wrote every drum hit, the way people play is the way people play, so he's got a feel, he's got a way he like touches the drums that kind of have this personal vibe to it. And then yeah, the parts where he wrote his own parts, there's definitely some cool surprises and little extra like ideas and stuff. So yeah, I like to work both ways, but I like to reserve the right to completely write a drum part just just as part of a process. Cause like on some songs, that's like on the song What Is Carved, like the drum part is tied to the guitar part in this direct way where it's like I'm playing this sort of web of a bunch of different notes, and it's like the drum part follows it in this like completely like direct way that you would have to write out, yourself to. And then like Diagonal Power, that was like him, that was all Gilles. Diagonal Power, he wrote all the drums for that, and so yeah, it sort of sounds more like a drum kit than a bunch of separate drums being played, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. What's the voice sample in the song We Are Not the Same?
The spoken sample?
Yes.
That's that see if I say that, does that fuck me up copyright wise? No one's
Oh,
it doesn't matter. It's it'll be fine. It's that's from The Wire.
oh. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, that's from season 5 is my least favorite season, but you've seen it all?
Yeah, season 5 kind of makes no sense where McNulty's making up the serial killer. It's
Yeah.
so bizarre.
Yeah, I know it becomes a little bit yeah, it's like an unreal. They lost the thread a little bit, but but at the end, like toward the end, when it comes out that the whole thing has been a hoax, and the mayor finds out that it's all been a hoax, and that he's been running his whole like campaign for the next for re-election was based on like the homeless like it just when they realized that there's just been this whole rippling effect of like everyone basing all their political operations on this thing that was a lie, and he's just like stunned, and he just doesn't even know how to speak, and his aide is just like, well, it has a certain charm to it, doesn't it? It's like everyone's full of shit.
So the song "Diagonal Power," just based off the title alone, for me it evokes imagery of chess. Does it have anything to do with chess?
It doesn't, but that's cool, man. I like that comes to mind. Um, some of these lyrics are vague enough that I'm kind of into not going too deep into them, which is
Nice.
unlike it's unlike me to not go on and on about my lyrics, especially simple answers. I just spent years just like yammering about about all the lyrics and the symbolism. This record, maybe I'm gonna do a little hands off, but that song is about exiting from it's about avoiding or exiting or slipping out of a lot of the battles being fought right now in the world and turning to a form of religion. Let's say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I personally prefer when vocalists are they choose not to give, I guess, like fixed answers to what the lyrics mean. When they say, it is what it is. I'm not gonna close off someone else's interpretation of the lyrics.
Yeah, some of these, especially that one, I think can be I think that's a good one for people to kind of do their own thing with. There's I will say, yeah, I'll give a hint. Some of the lyrics are taken from Ernst Junger, or paraphrased. You ever read Junger?
No, I'm not that smart.
Yeah, yeah, dude. The self-deprecating.
No, I haven't though.
This isn't like the Scarlet Letter from high school. I mean, this is like obscure, weird shit. But yeah, yeah. Some of the lyrics are cribbed from some of Junger's work. Yeah,
Are you still based in LA?
yeah. But I'm gonna move back to New York at early next year. Yeah, early 2023 when my girlfriend finished the school out here. Yeah, man, LA, dude, it's really not cool, man. I mean, it's like really, really not a cool place, man. I mean, all love and respect to my friends who live here. I mean, I do have friends here. It's not like I'm just, but bro, I mean, no. Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like if like being in LA versus New York shapes your creative practice in a way differently.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is sort of I knew that I was going to be doing remote operations. I already knew that my main band stuff was going to be done remotely, and it was going to be based around touring, because that's what this is. It's like Extra Life. We're going to play a bunch live, but it's going to be only tours because we don't live in the same place. We can't, you know,
Mhm.
be like, oh, so hop on this opening slot. So and so's coming to town. Um, but like, when I first came out here in 2019, at that point, Psalm Zero was going to be the main thing. And by the way, Psalm Zero is not necessarily like over. It's just kind of like, we'll see, because I haven't like exactly turned my back on that, but it's just sort of like a whole different like avenue of what I'm doing, you know. So I mean, Extra Life is my thing now, you know. But yeah, so it was already going to be like this. But even if I were in New York, though, like I don't know if it would have been that different, you know. It's not clear to me. Uh, Even if I were in New York with all these great drummers that I know who like would have been psyched to be an Extra Life, it probably would have been with Gilles anyway, for various reasons. And yeah, you know, New York, it's not. I mean, it's not the same as when Extra Life, you know, Extra Life sprang up out of a very particular moment in New York. I mean, I guess, and just in underground music more broadly. But but yeah, Extra Life being in New York and it's all New York dudes, that mattered in 2009 because we were just doing all these shows. We would do tours and do like pro shit, but then we would also play just like scrappy local shows for, you know, like we would just play like all the time, you know. Um and so even if I were living in New York, we wouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even if we were there, like that's just not the MO right now, you know.
So will the lineup be the same, like touring wise, as it was on the recording?
Definitely it'll be Gilles and Toby. Kaylee is going to do some gigs, but he's really not like on the lifestyle vibe of like getting in vans or even planes. Of course, once these festival things start rolling in, he might be like, ah, you know what, you do get a bunch of free stuff in Europe when you go over there. So it's like you might um but yeah, I think the vibe is that maybe not counting on Kaylee. So I think, yeah, I think we're gonna end up getting a fourth member. And it wouldn't have to be a violinist. It would be cool if it were a bowed string player of some kind. Um, just because that's a great part of the aesthetic. But it could be maybe we'll get a keyboard player, maybe we'll get like a second guitar player who'll play with a bunch of effects and will sort of render some of those parts that Kaylee was doing. Um, we can't just do it power trio though. That would be too sparse. Like we need something else to play those because Kaylee's parts are like they're not just like. I mean, some of his stuff is like background string atmosphere stuff, but a lot of it is like straight up lines, you know, really active violin stuff. So yeah, we need someone to do that. Um, and we get fourth member to replace Kelly. That person might have ideas of their own, which I am open to. You know, we'll see.
So when you start playing live again, are you guys going to focus on new material, or are there old songs that you might bring into the set list?
We're definitely going to do some old songs. Definitely. Because people do remember these tunes. Calling Blackmail Blues a tune is almost kind of funny, but yeah, see, that's the thing though. It's like I would love to do like Blackmail Blues, or I don't see it that way, but it's like those are like 10-minute pieces of music, so it's like, you know what I mean? It's sort of like that's like a quarter of a set, you know. So it may just be the older short ones. Or maybe we could do abbreviated version. We'll see. We'll see.
Right.
There will be old jams. There will be old jams for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Like, is there a track in the new album that really speaks to you, I guess? Like, do you have a favorite, basically?
Favorite on the new one, probably How to Die. That's probably my favorite. Um, Either that or Diagonal Power. I mean, you know, I'm psyched on Diagonal Power because it's a thing where I can just play it for people and they like get the whole picture of what. I mean, it doesn't have the quiet elements in it, but it's like very much like we're back. It has the old elements. It's got new elements, kind of. You know, Gilles doing his thing in a way that's like, oh shit, new drummer. We can kind of tell, you know. So I like that. I mean, I'm happy to direct people, yeah, to Diagonal Power first. You know, it's kind of like the signal the single. That's the only one that's streaming actually on
Yeah.
Bandcamp. But yeah, I think How to Die is probably the best. I don't know.
Yeah, I like How to Die. That song to me is just it's somber and pretty and also menacing, and just those vibes together just it hits me in a very nice way that I enjoy.
Yeah, thanks, man. I also just like the vibe, like lyrics and stuff. It's not like super complicated, like what's going on. Like it's kind of like there's some straightforwardness to like at least like the lyrical vibe. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I like singing quietly, man. On the louder songs, sometimes I have to figure out how I'm going to sing certain vowels. I have to sort of make these choices about how I'm going to approach it. The quiet songs, it's just very like organic, kind of intuitive.
Have you ever thought of having an iteration of Extra Life where you're just focusing on vocals and not playing an instrument?
Interesting. Like where I'm just like where it's
Yeah, like a
similar
front
music.
man. Yeah.
Um, definitely, I'm definitely not going to do that. For Extra Life, Simple Answers kind of became that. Well, I wasn't good. That was me singing and like writing all the stuff, and there's like most of the songs don't have guitar on them. So that was kind of me just as a singer, and that wasn't supposed to be performed live except for like this one huge concert. Um, but then I was getting ready for that, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm singing without an instrument. Okay, I guess I'm gonna like dance around and like do like performer stuff, I guess. Like, and so it's like, oh, okay. And then that's sort of, so then it's funny, man. So then there's this like brief window of time, and then I did a tour on that record where I'm using like backing tracks, or like I had a couple musicians playing some of the parts live. So that's like 2017, 2018, and a little bit of 2019. It's like this 2-year window where I'm like a free mic punk rock performer. It's not punk rock music, but I'm like, you know, holding the mic like a hardcore guy or something, in a way. So that was just like, I've had a very multifaceted career so far. It's just like 2 years of that. I don't want to do that anymore though. I'm glad Simple Answers just exists, and it's like this record for people to listen to, and it's like not part of my performing you know catalog or whatever. Like I'm kind of into that, because I don't, especially at my age, man, like just like free mic, like I don't know, it's just like not totally I wasn't 100% in my element.
Hmm.
um and also, man, this is another thing, is like a lot of this new Extra Life stuff, and it may not be this way, it might not come off this way, but as far as what I'm investing in it and how I'm like seeing myself in it, how I'm like feeling about who I am in the music, it's like I'm feeling like it's less about like me um as a personality. I mean, of course the music has personality. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's Extra Life, that's Charlie Lucas writing, but it's like, the lyrics are less personal, it's less like check out my, like looking inward, like, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like if you're like a free mic singer, it creates this thing of like, um this guy is a character,
Hmm.
he's like a personality and like a persona, his life, he's like bringing his whole life on stage, like this kind of thing. And you're like speaking for other people because you're out there in the crowd, whereas like with an instrument, it's like more like, okay, this is about music. um you don't have to 1,000,000% relate to me as a figure. Like, it's a little less, ego isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's less yeah, less persona, less theater. It's less theater, to have an instrument up there. It's easier to know what to do with my body. um
Yeah.
yeah, it's like relaxing with an instrument, even when we're playing like the least relaxed sounding music.
And that's why the band is called Extra Life and not Charlie Looker's Extra Life.
Right. That's such a jazz dude vibe. Like, Charlie Looker's like it's like there's no band, it's like everything is just a project.
So now that Extra Life is back together, do you is the door open for future material?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm already writing the next stuff. Yeah,
Awesome,
for
man.
sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is going to be the thing, man. This is going to be the thing uh for a while until it's not. But it's I mean, I'm just super pumped about and that's the other thing. It's like the next, the concept, how it is with stuff. It is weird to return because like when I formed Extra Life, it was like, okay, this is basically just a moniker for like me running a band. And so who knows where it's going to go. So then I like just make the first record, Secular Works, based on like not even really having a concept, just like, blah, here it is. But then it's like that establishes some stuff. So then Made Flesh is like, oh, okay, I'm like going to take, I'm going to continue some aspects, also introduce new aspects. Then the next one is like, oh, it's going to be different in this way, but it's like you're building on an idea. Then it's like Psalm Zero is like this weird break where it's like as though it's like, oh, fuck all that old stuff in a way. But so then coming back to this now, Extra Life, it's like you could ask the question, like, what's in a name? If it's like largely different personnel to like what, yeah, like, so, but in other words, the next record will be responding to this record, but could be quite different.
Mhm.
Like it'll be a continuation, but it won't necessarily be, the same way Made Flesh was different than Secular Works 1 and Ripped Heart was kind of different. I mean, the next one could very well be different, significantly different, I suppose.
Yeah. Something I always wondered about, I guess for lack of a better term, like you New York cats is like I always looked up the idea that you guys, for example, Z's, you'd blow up the old material. Like it's I don't know if you guys would say dead, but like we recorded it, it lived on the road for this time span, and now it's done. You were either
Yeah,
there
yeah,
or you
yeah.
weren't.
That I love that about Z's. I mean, we got to keep some of the old shit though. I mean, for Extra Life, just because people like, yeah, yeah, because people know those songs like as songs. Um, but no, that was a cool thing about Z's though, for sure. Yeah, but also some of that stuff, it's like when someone would leave the band or we'd like get a new member or something, it would make the old stuff like not work,
Mhm.
with the new instrumentation. So there'd be some of that. This Extra Life stuff, it's the same instruments, so we could totally do stuff from Secular Works, Made Flesh. um yeah, I definitely want to do some Ripped Heart stuff for sure.
Yes,
um
please.
I mean, some of these we'll do Strong Brother, Weak Brother for sure. I mean, some of these yeah, some of the it's like some of the Extra Life ballads, like Elegy from that record, and I'll Burn, and even Head Shrinker a little bit. Like I've been playing those songs live uh when I do like solo acoustic shows, which has been this kind of informal thing that I never made like a solo acoustic record or anything, but I'll just for fun I'll do shows where I play solo acoustic, and I'll just do like acoustic versions of songs from like all the different projects, from like Extra Life and a couple Psalm Zero uh unplugged and Simple Answers. So yes, some of those songs have like been around. They've still been in the mix, sort of.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for talking to me. It's good to see you again, and like I can't wait to see you guys live.
Hell
Where
yeah,
can
man.
people find new Extra Life music?
The new Extra Life record is it's on Bandcamp. Go to the Extra Life. Yeah, it's just Extra Life the band, Bandcamp. Yeah, there's some other Extra Life, but yeah, Extra Life the band is the spot. And yeah, you can only listen to one song. I'm being very cagey about what I'm streaming here. But yeah, you can listen to Diagonal Power there and buy the record. The it's just pre-order for the vinyl, but the vinyl will be out, I think November is the idea. Because I have a Connect where they do like a quick turnaround and stuff. But yeah, digital and vinyl, man. Check it out. And yeah, thank you so much for having me again. I love your podcast, man. It's cool. It's great to be on.
Thank you, man. Yeah, when you guys play Chicago, I'll be opening up the early music mosh pit,
Yeah, do it, man.
whatever that may
Excellent.
look like. But yeah, thanks, dude.